forest than there was ever before. It wasn't just trees. And every time we went out as kids, from my school in Shillong or from the tea plantations where my parents were located, it was all about sort of going for monkey shooting, duck shooting, going and seeing the animals. And it was about shooting because there was plentiful. And it was also about following the rules of the game, which was that you can't shoot beyond 3 months and you have to have a restoration period and take it forward from there. And then, my travels in the region led me to go through Bhutan. And I've been associated with Bhutan for a long time, meaning the Tashi Commercial Corporation was a commercial corporation and dealt with many of the products. And lo and behold, the product that I said was very good for agroforestry was called tobacco. So Tashi Commercial were actually the tobacco agents for the cigarettes that I sold. And that is how I started traveling Bhutan. I am not remorseful. I think tobacco was not a bad thing. It did create a lot of employment. Now they say tobacco is bad for the lungs and heart. Everything in moderation is okay. So I think I just look back and say moderation and time of age, you have to do things. And then I started traveling and went for the mountaineering program in Darjeeling. And then the mountaineering program was the basic and the adventure program. And it was tough in those days. But actually, we were always wanting to come back to Darjeeling and go to Bhutan. There were a few girls on our trips, so we said we'd go dancing tonight and everything that actually made life much easier than just this horrid thing called climate change and, the discussions of that type that did not exist then. It was just about where are we starting? Sandaku, in Sandaku, do we get rice and eggs or do we just get rice and dal and chili? It didn't matter really because our basic thing was to get back to memories and to come and have a drink, which we were not allowed to do at that age, so we came back and had drinks. So that was the coverage of Bhutan and what we call Darjeeling there. And I just fell in love with the school in Darjeeling, which was the forest school. It was actually, I was fell in love with their botanic garden, which actually has plants and natural assets of an unbelievable kind, but actually they don't value it, right? So they value it because people come and watch it, but they don't know the value of a palm which they imported or the local palms that exist and coexist with the palms that were there. So I came down, and then what happened was the place that I really enjoyed was Kadijora, which is the river Tista comes down, and I used to stop in Kadijora, lo and behold, for fishing. You'll be wondering, this guy shooting, fishing, doing everything, which is not supposed to be done, right? But we enjoyed the fishing, and then suddenly we realized after 10 years there were no fish in the river. So we used to keep casting and no fish came. And then we came down, and that was the year of the Tista floods, when everything got wiped out. It's unbelievable, Darjeeling, Jalpaiguri, Funchili, all the roads. And then lo and behold, I got married and my father-in-law was posted in Chuapala, which is bordering Funchili. And all his friends, including Benji, his boss actually was a friend of Benji. So the whole world comes around. He was an English guy. And he used to always say that, why can't you see that elephants? Go and see that. It was exactly what I thought in the wild. Then he said, have you been to Jagdapara? He said, they're wilds, but they're in the commons, They're in what is called reserved areas. Reserved area is a very American English term to actually say these are reserved, as if we were unreserved, So those reserved things was really the subject of that. And then I went to Bangladesh. I'm giving a long-winded answer to give you the topography of this whole 1 billion tree because it's not a one sort of line, so do forgive me. So I think we went down to Bangladesh and I went to the Sundarban and I was absolutely shocked with how beautiful it was. You couldn't think of a better place on earth. And then I went to the Andaman Islands. And then I came back and I went to Chittagong, and from Chittagong I went to the border, you're not allowed to cross, went back to Chittagong and then went to Mizoram. And then from Mizoram, turned back and went upwards towards Burma. And then I started doing this whole region. So, when the Bandipara Foundation was formed, my father did support me, and he supported me with money, which he was supporting me. And this was back in it was in 2007 we found it, but it was in 1990 that we did it. And the first product really of Badipara Foundation was a book. It was called the Kaziranga Inheritance. And that was 100 years of Kaziranga. My hero when I was growing up was the book that Sonali mentioned, but I actually met EPG and Robin Banerjee. These were two people that were really the brothers. And then we said, let's do this. And then as we unfurled Badipara Foundation, and we did bits and bobs, etc., we got bright, smart, intelligent Mr. Saurabh, the young Saurabh, who sort of came and said, what are you doing all these things? Let's do one thing, let's do forest. I think the Great People's Forest really worked as a result of that germination, that let's do one thing good. And that one thing will have everything, people, culture, everything. And then, we met other people and then we sort of grew it, and then came along young Jason. So Jason was fully budding, wanted to get something sort of to do in India other than what he does or did at short awards. And I think the combination of him and then Conceal and then Conservation International, all these combinations sort of led to the Great People's Forest. But the background of where I grew up was absolutely fantastic. I would not have dreamt on my own to do Great People's Forest, I'll be honest. I was quite happy doing small things because I know with it comes a lot of accountability and responsibility. So when you do that, you can't shirk it. And I was not wanting to do it. So I am very clear that the Great People's Forest is a byproduct of Badipara Foundation. It is something that we help to think and spin off. It's a separate organization. It has nothing to do with Badipara Foundation doing or spawning it or feeding it over the long run. In the short run, we're there to help it because it's a baby that we've helped to sort of create. And I think over the long run, it has to find its own feet and find its own direction and come back to support Badipara Foundation in a small thing. We have the Little People's Forest idea in Badipara Foundation, and Great People's Forest is the idea of Great People's Forest to other people that were involved in it, which includes me and are still involved in it. So I think that's really the story. And it's the whole value chain. Can you imagine what we're going to create? Seeds, feed, nurseries, transportation, growing, and the people own it. What more do you want? Unlike almost any other scheme. It will come with a lot of challenges. People owning it means people mafia, wood mafia, jungle mafia. So we'll handle one by one. If we talk about all the problems, we'll never get it going. As an entrepreneur, that's what I've done. So we are here with looking towards everybody's support to see that you all make this happen in small little ways. There will be twists, turns, ups and downs, and we face it as it comes. But Benji, thank you for your support all along and showing me all your dreams. And Benji is the father of this whole, the Great People's Forest much before us, because he said, let's do a border of forests around Bhutan in India. And he was actually sort of part of a collaborative team which Mrs. Indira Gandhi had formed. And they used to meet regularly, and of course, it was called the Trans-Border Management Program, I think TRAMCA or whatever it was called. And somehow it just wound itself up, and Benji grew younger, so he thought, I might as well sort of get that up. And he's back, that's the good thing, and that's why he's here. So he's really the father of this big idea. And that led me to Manas and all the beautiful things like fishing and all that, But I can tell you, Benji has been the love of my life for a long time. And every time I think of Bhutan, I think of Benji. I sometimes think that he's definitely the king of forests and the king of the happiness index, because with forests comes great people's happiness. And so he's the great people happiness guy. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit. I'm just a very humble servant of my Lord and Master, the fourth king, and I just do his bidding. But thank you very much for your insight, for sharing with us your vision for the great people's forest and for the future. What I think is that you have realized that what the message that we're trying to get across to the people is that it's time to stop talking. Instead of going to all these meetings all over the world talking about let's do this, let's do that, and there's no real political will to do anything, I think we should continue to let them talk, but over here, you should do action. Take action and start doing things. So the message, I think, which we'll come to a little bit later, but introducing, ladies and gentlemen, from Bhutan, small in stature, but another man, a giant in his vision and his thinking and his actions. May I introduce Dr. Awang Noble, most fondly known as Dr. N, with amongst his teammates. Dr. N, can you tell us what you see, how you envision Bhutan's role in this vision of the Great People's Forest, which is being proposed and being executed by the Balipara Foundation under Ranjit Protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. For a moment, I was worried I didn't bring my boxing gloves the way I was being introduced. But here, I think, just to give a preface, for the longest time, I think Bhutan also wanted to do something very similar together with the region. In 2011, there was an initiative in Bhutan which we called the Living Himalayas, and we called actually, in fact, all the 4 countries which now fall under the Great People's Forest, Bangladesh, India, Nepal and Bhutan. Because everybody knows this, we realize that this is a land which is not only ecologically connected, but also connected for over many centuries with trade. Culturally, we are very connected. So the opportunity to do something together in this region, when we were asked, because of Dr. Benji, to partner in this, we jumped at it, because we were looking for something like this. Now many people will think, why should Bhutan jump into the reforestation game? Because we have over 70% of forest cover. We are carbon negative, one of the few truly carbon negative countries, if I may say so. And the Bhutanese in general have tread very, very lightly. So when we talk about reforestation, people are like, well, you guys have enough. But I think one of the things which Bhutan must do is continue to champion the cause of living sustainably, living in harmony. So because of that, we wanted to be at the edge and show the people that we are not backing down. We are not going to rest on our laurels. We are going to push ahead. And one of the things we also have to realize is, when I look across, I think there are many young people, and I think one of the things which I appreciate about the Balipara Foundation doing is this Rural Futures Fellows or whatever. The aspiration of young people across the world are the same, whether be they in Nepal or be they in India or in Assam or in Bangladesh. Young people across the world want a better future. If you look at Bhutan, many of the rural areas now, many of the youth actually leave to cities. I think this is a phenomenon which is common across the globe. And because of that, most of the farmlands are being left fallow. So we thought one of the great initiatives will be to revive these land, bring it back by planting economically valuable trees, which not only helps sequester carbon, but also have a real impact on Bhutanese economy and job creation in rural areas. So current estimates show about 20,000 hectares being left fallow across Bhutan. We have been conservative. We will target close to 10,000 hectares over the next 10 years and plant over 6 million across those fallow areas. The rest of the 4.7, because our target is 10 million by 2030, in support of the billion across this region. The rest of the areas is degraded forest lands, which we have about close to 5,000 hectares. So we are committed, and we are very proud and happy to be part of this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the neutral corner from Singapore, we have Dr. Richard Gio. Richard, how do you see Conservation International's role in this great vision that Balipara Foundation is putting up, and to which we in Bhutan are hoping to be a partner in this forthcoming activity?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, with this great panel. It's very humbling, actually. Benji, I've heard about you for many years, and you might wonder why some, American who lives in Singapore, who's never set foot in the country of Bhutan, is here talking about Bhutan. It's a legitimate question, but it's really about roles. Conservation International is one of these big global NGOs. We work on nature, climate, nature for climate, oceans, and nature positive economies all over the world. But what we have found is that our driving force is this idea that people and nature are linked. People need nature. Nature doesn't need people. And the key thing here is, can we find the places, the bright spots, the leadership in the world where we can really demonstrate this fact? And Bhutan is one of these places. It's been a leader in conservation, sustainability, in human well-being. And it's very underappreciated and very needed in the world today. So if anything, my role is to highlight that and try to bring that, the importance of both this great project, the vision of the Bali Power Foundation, the vision that's been in Ranjit's head for years, this idea of naturenomics, that nature has value. And not just some sort of woo-woo value that everybody loves it sort of theoretically, but it really has economic value that we can measure. And I think, if anything, a country like Bhutan has been a champion of protecting nature, but the valuing part has been unmonetized, if you will. This idea that 70% of nature, of the forest cover is protected, that Bhutan is carbon negative, truly carbon negative. Right? It's not greenwashing, it's just like Bhutan's overall economy and way of life is putting carbon back into the ground, from the atmosphere for the world. That has real value, but that's not translated into financing of nature. So I think a big part of our job in the Great People's Forest is, can we value this, and can we drive the financing from the world? There's plenty of money out in the world that's being spent on all kinds of things that are degrading the world. But can we bring some of that financing and put it to places and invest it? In many ways, I think of it as investing in nature as infrastructure. These headwaters in Bhutan are so important for 1 billion people. 1 billion people live downstream of Bhutan. And headwaters, we know, it's unquestionable how important those things, that headwaters are for downstream ecological services. Forests literally create fresh water. They provide natural water storage. They capture rainfall, they capture snowfall, and they release it, on a hydrological scale that is evolved over millennia. And this is what's been disrupted with global warming. Is now there's like the whole thing is changed. But can we keep those forests intact and rebuild these forests as infrastructure to provide these downstream benefits for people? And how can we pay for that? So if anything, my job at CI is to help go and find money from capital markets, unlock these flows so that we can pay for nature as infrastructure.
Thank you, Richard. Rajit, would you?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that we encapsulate what has been said by Dr. N and by Richard, and actually the opening direction that has been given. We see other partners and gurus here. We have Dr. Bhava, who's been dedicated his whole life to sort of nature in the Himalayas. I mean, what more, he married an Himalayan flower and takes her everywhere around. I'm saying his dedication can't be more than that. Then we got Eklavya, and we got people from the Himalayas like Sarda, who've all actually added to this great document. If you ask me, one of the best NGOs that are there in India in terms of both content, theory, and science is actually H3. And that is closely followed by Terry. So we've got Terry, who Viva I think will come later, as also a partner. Bachi, as was known to everybody as he was, meaning forget any other sort of turmoil that the organization may be going through. I think that she did contribute in bringing about a big recognition of the fact that India played an important role in getting people together, and that's really what his strength was, and therefore mobilizing money, funds, and also introducing science. There's always two sides of the coin. You can have any kind of criticism of what's right and what's wrong. I think it's important to understand that in Bhutan's case, is a perfect case. Bhutan and three other areas that I will point out in the region in my own mind. Bhutan is a perfect case for a financial market to say, this is the financial asset class. Asset class of the geography of Bhutan comprises of the following trees. These following trees have the following further asset classes: the medicinal asset class, the furniture and household asset class, the tourism asset class, and we can go around talking about it even more, the food and sort of the food and the forest asset class. So we've made a model and we've created it ourselves in Bhalibara Foundation, and I've worked it initially. I think people don't give much credibility to it, and people in the movement of wanting to go fast don't want to actually say that is the basis for everything. The second part is the Sundarbans itself. What is the value of that? And I'm not even getting into the element of what I call real valuation of nature. I'm just saying asset class valuation of the forest in terms of just what is standing, nothing else. I'll come to the rest later. Second is the Sundarbans. In the Sundarbans, you have the same kind of benefit because there you can assess water and you can assess underwater values of what there is. The third is Arunachal Pradesh. These are no-brainers for asset class motivation for New York Stock Exchange. And I'm surprised that in New York Climate Change Week, they don't even talk about this because they have a great asset class in Canada, they have a great asset class in the Yellowstone National Park, they have all these places which I have actually had the privilege of going to and seeing actually through the world journey. I'm seeing the asset classes exist everywhere. So they need to do it. There are minuses and they have to take off subtractions, like when you talk about the Yellowstone National Park or the Boston Bay. You know, I'm saying there are negative thoughts on it, but they're positive. Look at Boston Bay and the entire area of the East Coast. It has the 5 fish, the salmon, the trout, etc. All the 5 fish. There are many books written on it to say actually they were breeding centers and then how they retracted. So if you look at it, the basic thing is that this valuation that is what the role of CI should be. The role should be to get New York to value this. If you've got that valuation, we've got, of course, in the interim you need funding. In the interim you need funding to A, get the valuation, and B, to run the organization. I also know, and on a more sort of pedantic way, is that it's very easy to say this, but I'm reflective of our own journey, not just in Bhalibara Foundation, but my own life. There's so many times you go up and down and fail. But most people and most leaders and most managers, when they fail or see something, they blame the world. They say, no, that can't be done. I'm demotivated because of this. I give up. I don't want to be there. Because, I'm being pulled down all the time. Come on, boss. Everybody has a dream. And everybody wants to be up. Nobody wants to be pulled down. But if somebody if a tree is pulled down, our organization is pulled down, this entire Great People's Forest. If dairy is pulled down, that is what happens. If friendship is pulled down and somebody criticizes them, meaning we are pulled down, we have to help in making all these pillars succeed together. Doing this takes time, and the leaders within must understand. And people who don't want to take that should just leave. Because there are enough people in the world. They're not, we're not short of people. In India, 1.4 billion people. In this entire ecosystem, we've got many more people. So I think people must start introspecting and saying what makes a team and what makes leadership. And I think this leadership focused on valuation is the leadership that we're asking for. We've got enough science now on plant. If you don't get the money, if you don't get the funds, you cannot do the value. Lastly, what is really good governance and what is good delivery for people? You see, good delivery and good elements of this is the social structure. Does everybody have everything in terms of expression, in terms of what they call happiness. It's not possible, but there can be a roadmap. And that's really the structure that we're trying to do. The entire happiness index through forest, which Michael, Saurabh, the TCS team, Earth Analytics, are you here? Mr. Sharma, where is he? So he was here. Oh yeah, hi there. So Earth Analytics, he plays a very important role in our construction of this model, which has the economics of it, which has the social dimension of it, and which has everything else that follows in life and reality. Because finally, everybody is driving something. You know, you can't say people here, everybody wants a new life. And it's not that one individual, it's all of us. Somebody wants a car, somebody wants to go to Harvard, somebody wants to do a program, and as long as we fulfill it, any kind of negative within that should not be used to beat up the organization. And that's what I noticed, people are so selfish. But we have to manage people with selfish needs. And this format will help to try and address those needs. We cannot address it and close it, but we can definitely address the needs of this whole process of going up. And until we do that, and until we move towards that direction, we'll have failures. But I would urge all of us here sort of to support us. And look at Bhutan, it's a great example. But if they're not monetized, and if their social dimensioning is not done, you'll have a revolution in Bhutan with the people. So they're saying, okay, this is only meant for a few, we are in the forest. Because I see the rumblings, we've been giving Bhutan awards for the last 11 years, actually 9 years in totality. And people there are not exactly, they're happy up to a point. After that, when everything is there, what is the next level of happiness? So I think we need to address some of this for Bhutan, but we need to help them first. Not all this lofty ideas or everything else. Just get them money. Bhutan, you're the green bank of the world. Bhutan, you've done this, you're carbon negative. Forget carbon. Why carbon? Look at water, look at soil, look at biodiversity. You can't measure it all, but let's give them the money based on a financial asset class. So that's the clarion call that we should do. Let's make Bhutan the one-point data. We come to Bangladesh, Arunachal, and the rest. If we all try and clamor for the same thing, we'll get nothing. That's what COPs are about. Everybody clamors for the same thing and wants a position of pride. So I think it's very important that we make Bhutan absolutely the flag of this, and that is one thing that I would request my fellow panelists to help us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. That was wonderful. Dr. N, earlier on, before coming on the stage, I think we had a little chat with Richard talking about all this to stay carbon neutral, to keep free-flowing rivers, costs money, and everything. Could you and Richard take this a little bit further on?
Well, I would take the liberty of asking you this question, Benji. It's like, what does Bhutan really need, in terms of economy and vision and ambition, to keep the rivers free-flowing, to keep its forests intact, and really to grow in a way that's aligned with your values and vision that's really been well laid out to the world?
You know, Richard, what we've done in Bhutan, we started in the early 70s. And we started with a vision, the young king who believed in keeping Bhutan's nature intact. And in doing so, we gave up a lot of short-term benefits and gains in long-term global interests. And I say global interests and highlight because what has happened since then till now, what Bhutan has done, we've really denied ourselves a lot of wealth. If tomorrow we wanted to increase our GDP by 1,000%, we could immediately go and do all our mining activities, the forest act, cut down all our forests. But no, my king said we will not be the bad guys in this world. We will be responsible global citizens. We shall have good governance and take care of our environment and our nature. And I'm so happy to be a servant, to have implemented many of these programs, and His Majesty has also been recognized as a global environment leader by a number of global awards. So Richard, when we see that, how do you see the, we need help because we don't know how to access the funding when we have made these sacrifices. So Dr. Ed may be able to express it a little better.
Yeah, I just want to state two things. One, I think, just reiterating what Dr. Benji said about leadership, I think this will be critical. And the leader's view is, I think, what shapes most countries. So the question today becomes then, how do we educate the next generation of leaders? How do we make sure that many more champions like the fourth king of Bhutan takes birth in the planet and then really do the stuff which they do? And I think that's a challenge on its own which we have to address some other time. But really the next generation of leaders, I think, will be critical. The second today, the biggest challenge in Bhutan is many of us know now, the youth of Bhutan are looking for better opportunities outside. How do we make nature work for the people? Where do we create jobs? Where do we build bioeconomies? I think those are the areas where we will need to invest. And I know there was this steel keynote speaker from the steel industry today, and he was saying maybe wood is going to replace steel. Yes, I think those kind of economies we should look at. If we build cities in Bhutan, should we build it with wood? Create jobs around those kind of things. And I think we need investment into those things, really making sure that the conservation which we have done over the last 50 to 100 years now pays back for our people. I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from my perspective, my role and the role of Conservation International is to really help with this value creation from nature, so that there can be economic values, that those jobs, the innovation, the way of life that does not draw down nature that can be done in these special places like Bhutan and throughout the region. And what exactly that looks like will be different locally. It'll be different here in Assam. It'll be different in Bangladesh. It'll be different in Nepal. But it's the same general problem. How do we create values from nature that don't destroy nature, that do in the long run build nature and make it more resilient and healthier for the entire world? That's the challenge, and it's really a challenge of fundraising and financing. Because when we talk about like this first phase of the Great People's Forest, which we rolled out this initial portfolio of, I think it was 60,000 hectares, and multiple partners, across the region. That just in itself is a huge project. But that's the first unlock of this combination of grant funding and demonstration of success and showing that this can really work. But in the longer run, we need to do bigger blended finance, because we know philanthropy and grant funding will not be enough. We can't although it would be wonderful, we can't just get one person to give us the $1 billion that we need. So we'll require aligning these bigger institutional investors like Asian Development Bank or the World Bank or the Green Climate Fund or the Global Environment Facility, and really aligning that money towards this idea of building nature as infrastructure, restoring forests for the services that they provide to all the people in the region and of the earth. And that financing could easily add up to hundreds of millions and eventually $1 billion plus. And that's the kind of financing we need to unlock to bring to places like Bhutan, so that you don't turn to these alternatives like mining and damming the rivers and and doing all the things that, frankly, the Western world has done to create wealth for a very small number of people. That it is really our job to make sure that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, hi there. I think it's a complex discussion, yet it's a simple one. The simple one is that we need to value nature. How do you value nature is the question. And I've been at this much before. When we started Naturenomics, there was none of the great ambitions that we have put there, which is really the right ambition and that's the right direction. Unless you think that big, maybe we said 500 million and I said let's make up it to $1 billion. I'm there to stake myself to say that we get the money for sure. But we'll fail, we'll slip, we'll mumble, fumble, but not crumble. I I think that's the attitude that we must have. Not give up, halfway, this is that, this is that. We don't want people who are the weak-hearted to come onto this bandwagon. So we'll find the right people, we'll find the right direction, and we'll find not just the guys who can sort of raise the money, the guys who can implement, and actually implementation is key. Now you just take the case of this valuation. I'll give you two examples. One is bamboo. If you just cut a bamboo, in any of the forests in the northeast, and talk about Bhutan, just cut the bamboo, it is between 20 and 40 feet tall. That bamboo is available for 300 rupees. You transport that bamboo to a place where they make fencing and they use it for houses, but still, it's a good housing material. It looks as if it's bad because that's the impression we have. Bamboo is meant for poor people. Bamboo is not meant for rich. But bamboo is translating from that 300 to 400, from those forests, into the fences, to the houses, into something more modern, which is floors. We call it floors because the industrial revolution has picked up, technology supported it. So if you convert that bamboo into chips and make floors and walls, which is the same bamboo, then it's called, oh wow, that's nice. Let's do it that way. The other one is a recyclable house. This one is not recyclable. That's for the poor. This is for the rich. If you look at the value of that bamboo, just look at that 300 coin. It's 4,000 rupees per bamboo by the time you put it in that house for the floor. Just look at the economic value that Bhutan is giving us. So where is the question? This is absolutely a mind-blowing reality that the value of that exists. We don't need. Yeah, there's only lunch, right? People can wait. We're giving them food for thought. Okay, sorry. So I think if you look at that bamboo, I'm saying it's a no-brainer. Where is the question of that 5,000 rupee, one bamboo? How much goes into the forest? Very little, 300. So just look at the value addition that there is in the profit that is given. You now reverse that. Let's take Bhutan and let's take the teak trees that go to Bhutan. Right? Forget the alpine region, but below the alpine. Having traveled and traversed in Bhutan, it has very distinct sort of forest. And you take this forest and you measure it. Forget carbon, forget climate change. I don't know what climate change is. Really, I can understand these figures, they're big and they're real, But that's for the scientists and everybody governments to do. I can't contribute it. And I know that my weather changes here. The rainfall that Chanakya was saying, etc. And I know food gets affected. If you look at it and do a discounted cash flow on that one tree that is in Bhutan, just think of that one tree in Bhutan that has grown in year 1. By year 10, you can take part of it, the branches. By year 40, it is a value which is into lakhs. One teak tree is roughly about 16 lakhs of rupees now. There's full grown teak tree of 40 to 60 feet and about a girth of about 3 to 7 feet. So if you take that is the value of it. Where is the question? What is New York and climate change experts doing in not calculating that? That's the value of discounted cash flow. Add up all that for Bhutan. Bhutan's economy is actually already a $1 trillion economy. India is struggling to get to 3 to 4, right? Our $1 trillion economy is our neighbor, Bhutan, the small tin pot country. They're the richest of all of us. Arunachal is richer than Nariman Point if you take the same equation. So what are we waiting for? I can't understand. So all our NGOs, all we are doing is saying that we basically need to go in that direction, and that's why I like this idea of Jason, later Richard and CI. I don't think it's a fundraising drive. It's a fundraising drive just to survive because we need to eat and drink and we need this organization to run. But the valuation of this should be floated. Bhutan is the next NASDAQ item. Arunachal is the next NASDAQ. That's what we should be aiming for. If this conference has one success parameter, it is to say, let us recommend to the financial world that Bhutan should go. And I'm saying Bhutan is not the red, otherwise we'll lose focus in doing 10 things. Yeah? We'll become top. Bhutan should be valued and put on the NASDAQ in 5 years from now. Tell us what's wrong. Then we've got a deal.
Thank you. Before I wrap up, Dr. N.
Wait, just one last parting thought. So a couple of years ago, Dr. Benji asked me, so what's the next big challenge? Because I used to study birds, I used to put radio collars, and I used to look at their ecology. And when he asked me, I told him I should have studied finance. Because unless we wrestle the markets, we are not forget about conserving the world. So I'm very much in agreement with what Ranjit said, and yeah, look forward to doing great work together. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, panelists. A big hand for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.